Hello everyone, I am the Weather Dude, welcome back, and today we're going to be talking about the possibility for some major snowstorms from the northern plains over to the east coast. Just basically give an update on the near future over the next week or two and the changes that we're going to be seeing here in the pattern. So of course, be sure to stay tuned for this video, you definitely don't want to miss it. And of course, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. Alright, so we're going to get into first the North Atlantic Oscillation Index, just giving you guys an update on what we're seeing there. So the NAO, you can see right now is in a positive phase, and that will probably persist over the next week or two, right? Now basically what that means is, like, remember when we had those negative dips back, late November and December, that brought some cold and snow to like the central US and the eastern US. Well, that pattern's kind of flipping now since we're lifting into a positive phase, and I'm going to show you what that's going to mean for our pattern change here. A PNA though is also positive. Now when a PNA is in the positive phase, that means that we could see some cold and snow, or at least colder air in like the northern plains and the east coast. And it can also lead to some snow as well with that colder air, but it doesn't really guarantee snow. But the PNA being in the positive phase kind of contradicts the NAO being in a positive phase as well, right? But they don't always correlate with each other. They're not always opposites. So that's why I like to show both, just to give a good perspective on that. If we look at the Climate Prediction Center, taking a look at our 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, you can see the change that I'm talking about here. It's going to warm up dramatically, basically right after Christmas for a lot of areas. So this is the 26th of December through January 1st, so basically New Year's Day. And you can just see the warm up, basically the entire US, except for like northwestern Alaska. Now, I know they had to be the ones that ruin it, right? But basically the entire United States, including Hawaii even as well, we'll be seeing the chance of above average temperatures. Now, anywhere in the areas basically in the orange have a greater than 50% chance, so any like this darker orange color and above, that's where you see a greater than 50% chance. And that's still the majority of the United States, right? So big warm up is on the way. I mean, now is it going to feel like summer? No, maybe if you're in the south, but I mean, in the north, right, the warm up will just, it will definitely warm up, but it's not going to be hot. Because I don't want people thinking just because we see red on the map means it's going to be like blazing hot. Not necessarily. The precipitation outlook, again, majority of the United States except for like northern Hawaii and like the southwest, basically southern Arizona, southern New Mexico, like West Texas. You guys can see some below average precipitation, but otherwise majority of the United States has a good chance to see above average precipitation. So if that comes during, sometimes the colder air, we could have some snow, but of course, remember, during the same period, there's a good chance we're going to have a warm-up. So let's get into the models. We're going to start off with the Canadian. All right, so you can see that Clipper system coming through, and we have that storm coming up the east coast there, right? But then we have some other snow, maybe some potential snow showers, right? So you can see Clipper 1, then we see that storm move out. We see a big cold shot of air, and we see another little Clipper system move in, right? And then we see potentially a storm forming out in the central plains. All right, so, but basically in the east, it's going to be like a roller coaster because we're going to have pretty cold air, like really cold air, probably the coldest air we've seen so far, basically Saturday, Sunday, and then maybe even the Monday morning as well. But then literally days later, by the end of the week, it's going to be like a warm up. So it's going to be a crazy temperature swing there in the east. We're going to get to that in a bit as well. So snow totals with the Canadian model, you can see right here, pretty decent swath of like 6+ inches of snow from like North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, even to the northeast as well. Pretty widespread areas of like 6 to 8 inches of snow, with areas in like North Dakota and in the Green and White Mountains in the northeast maybe seeing more double-digit 10+ inch snowfall totals, right? Anywhere between 6 and 12, with the closer to 12-inch totals being reserved for the higher elevations. And of course, the Rocky Mountains, where we typically see there's snow pretty much all the time now, at least until like May. And if we take a look at the temperatures, you'll see what I'm talking about. So watch the cold air advance into the weekend, okay? But then in the same area, watch what happens as we head towards post-Christmas. Look at that. Massive warm-up. And we basically went from, like 16 to 20 degrees below average to like 16 to 20 degrees above average in like a few days. So it's going to be a wild temperature swing here for like even the central US and the eastern US. So buckle up. I hope you guys are ready for it. All right, GFS, let's get into it here. So you can see, again, that storm riding up the east coast. We have another Clipper system then coming in after that, right? And then maybe another storm potentially forming in the central US, right? Maybe 2 more, right? So there's gonna be a lot of storms that have the potential, but here's the first one right here. That coastal storm, right, in like Friday and Saturday time frame could bring some light snow showers to places that maybe haven't seen it yet, like New York City, maybe parts of the 95 corridor, but after that, it's gonna be mostly just cold air. But there's Clipper 1, right, moving through, and then you can see, of course, Clipper number 2 coming in, and then we have those 2 potential storms that could form out here in like the Tennessee Valley and the central United States. So whether it snows or not, and some models say yes, some say no, right, in the near future, whether we get a lot of snow out of these storms, the models do agree it's going to be a stormy pattern. And I think that's definitely a big takeaway here. So let's take a look at the snowfall totals with the GFS model. Again, across the northern tier, a good chunk, 6 to 8 inches of snow, right? Maybe Michigan gets a few inches, right? It's like more 2 chunks, right? Like the Canadian had a whole swath, basically from North Dakota all the way to the northeast. The GFS kind of has more chunks. So again, north central could see 6 to 8 inches, and maybe in the northeast we could see 6 to 10 as well, especially in those higher elevations. Maybe even down the Appalachia as well, we could see a few inches of snow.
Oh, interesting.
But they really have the Rockies getting a lot of snow. I mean, talk about feet of snow over the next, a week or so. It's about 12 days out to about New Year's Eve. So, I mean, again, they usually do get a lot of snow in this time frame in the higher elevations, right? In the Rockies, they can really pick up on a lot of snow there, and rapidly as well. All right, GFS, what are they saying on the temperatures? Well, here we go. Again, big cold shot into the weekend.
A few moments later.
And then literally days later, here comes the big warm-up, right? And basically, it's going to start in the Central Plains and then the Ohio Valley. It'll slowly but surely shift over to the east. It's going to be building and spreading eventually through the United States, and you can see it right there in the end frame. Basically, between Christmas and New Year's is going to be that warm-up. So, yeah, that's a welcome sight, right? Maybe you have people visiting you for the holidays that are not used to the colder air, right? So that's always a possibility. So warmer air across the whole country, right? It's basically a win for everybody, especially this time of year, especially for people who are not, big fans of the cold air. Right, if we take a look, now the GFS, I wanted to throw this model run on here real quick. So I was looking at the 6Z model run, that's the most recent, but this is from 0, right? So this is the previous model run, but I wanted to point this out because there is the potential, right? In the previous model run, we had this big low pressure basically moving up the East Coast and then curling back. Now this is around New Year's Day, right? So this is a little bit far out, but I wanted to point it out because, the models are calling for, at least the GFS is, right? For some, potentially big snow. Now, the GFS long-term, yes, I know it can be sometimes inaccurate, but the previous versions of the Canadian and the Euro, or actually specifically the European, were potentially hinting at some, East Coast storm around New Year's, and then look at the cold air coming in behind you. You can see with those blue lines, right? So a lot of cold air potentially coming in behind this one. All right, but again, this is the previous model run, but I wanted to kind of point it out because it is a possibility, right? And this looks like the 6Z model run too, right? Remember the low pressure rising up from the south and kind of bending up to the north, right? It's just a matter of what kind of precip actually occurs from it. All right, last model, we're gonna take a look at the European. Again, there's a low pressure system, some isolated snow showers coming down from the northeast or from the northwest into the northeast. And then we have, again, that little other clipper system sweeping through. All right, and then you can see, again, the low pressure starting to form in the south central, right? So, again, the model's painting a stormier picture over the next couple of weeks. And I think, again, that's what the Climate Prediction Center was trying to drive that point home. But it's a matter of what precipitation actually falls from these storms. We're not too sure yet if it falls in some conjunction with some cold air, if it could be some snow, or if it's just going to stay as rain for most people. The European, lighter on the snow totals, but like the Canadian, they have like that big swath, right? So it's just like a swath of, 3 to 6 inches here, but, it's not like as much as the Canadian was saying. So again, North Dakota to the northeast, about 3 to 6, with some areas, maybe near the Great Lakes and, into, northern PA, southern New York, Michigan. Some areas could pick up around 6 or 7 inches, according to the European model. All right, and then lastly, let's take a look here at the temperatures. Again, temperature anomalies way below average for the East Coast here over the weekend and just before Christmas. And then post-Christmas, there's the big warm-up over the northern plains, and eventually it spreads. I want to let this play one more time so you can see like that last frame there. And you can see eventually it just spreads and spreads, and then boom, there you go. Basically, most of the country at that point is going to see the warmer air, which again could be a welcome sight for some. All right, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I am the Weather Dude signing off till next time, and I will catch you guys in the next video.